Hey, this is Buck Dharma of Blue Oyster Cult, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP Television. Today's show is brought to you by UppercutChops.com. Check out their tasty selection of all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Angus and Wagyu steaks and chops. Wait till you taste their best-in-class New York steaks, the filet mignon, and of course the king of all those gigantic cowboy cut and tomahawk cut ribeyes. Best I've ever had, probably be the best you ever have as well. Check them out at UppercutChops.com. That's UppercutChops.com. Or give them a call, find out what's for dinner, 714-948-0100, 714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100 for UppercutChops.com. All right, a big welcome in, everybody listening in out of our radio and television affiliates, everybody streaming, everybody on Chicago Food Favorites as well. Thanks for joining us over there. Chicago Food Favorites, a fun group on Facebook. Talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. And by the way, our friends over at Vacation Buddies are giving away a couple of nights in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or in Branson, Missouri, if you can answer a simple trivia question. And if so, call the number right after the question and claim your 2 free nights in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. Here is the question. Which of these 3 is the tallest structure in Las Vegas? Is it A, the Stratosphere Tower at the Strat? Is it B, the Fontainebleau Hotel and Casino? Or is it C, the Eiffel Tower at the Paris Hotel and Casino? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with the station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri, if you know the answer to that very simple trivia question. If so, call 888-576-5777. Call now. You know, that's a simple trivia question. And when you look at simple answers, that's a really simple one, folks. I mean, that's a couple of free nights. Boom, right there. I got to tell you, there are some questions or rules or things that you may think you know about maybe the National Football League. Let's stick with the NFL for a while here. And we think of the rules. A lot of people seem to know the rules. They seem to know a lot about football because football is technically, it is America's most favorite sport. Now, me personally, it's not, but for America, I'm only one out of 270 million, thereabouts, 300 million, we'll call it. Anyway, the reality is I'm just one person, but there are a lot of rules about football. There's so many rules about football, you scratch your head, say, how the hell do they even play a game? Well, maybe that's why they only have, 17 games in a season, if you know what I mean. So many rules to enforce. But some of these really make me scratch my head, say, well, I don't even know. You just pull out a simple one here. A real simple one is Rule 33. Well, guess what? That one is winners are declared only when their team scores exactly 33 points. What? That's right. This is traditionally speaking. So if no team scores 33 points during a week, the pool will roll over to the following week. When somebody finally hits 33 points, they are considered the winner of that week. All consecutive weeks prior to. This is more of a betting thing, if you know what I mean, folks. That's what this one is.
Show me the money!
I thought I would throw you a little curveball. Okay, let's go to Rule 17. Rule 17 of the NFL grants the commissioner, and every time we think of Roger Goodell, unfortunately, that seems to be the common sound that a lot of people have. Okay, well, that said, you've got Rule 17, of course, grants the commissioner ultimate authority to intervene in games affected by, quote, extraordinarily unfair, close quote, acts or calamities, allowing for game reversals, replays, or resumption from a specific point. That's right. Through its rarely invoked and often discussed regarding major non-calls, of course, like the infamous Saints-Rams NFC Championship game. There's scores and scores of those. But it gives the commissioner the power to discipline teams and players or even overturn results if an unfair event significantly impacted the outcome. But no commissioner has fully used this power to alter a game's result, creating debate all around its applications. I mean, look, folks, there are many, many, many occasions that I can think of. I mean, the one that comes out in my mind is, of course, that same no call or non-call when there was clearly pass interference, defensive pass interference, not OPI. No, it was pass interference in the Saints when they clearly, their receiver was absolutely interfered with. Every replay angle showed it. Every announcer said it. Every analyst said it. Everything said it. And it just appeared as though that the officials, or possibly, I don't know, could it be the money?
Show me the money!
And we'll show you a non-call or something to that effect. And what's interesting is when I'm talking about prognostication for this game, that game, this sport, that sport, the thing that always comes to mind for me, and I always tell people this, as Sal the bookmaker, I always tell people to do what? Follow the money, because the money knows all. The injury report doesn't really matter. Who's doing whose wife doesn't matter. The weather report really doesn't matter too much, because ultimately, the big bucks and the game decisions as I see them, and a lot of the former NFL players that I know have come to the same realization after talking and looking at it for just even the last decade. They have said, you know what? You may be onto something here, because this call and that call and the other call, these calls don't make sense whatsoever. And you scratch your head and say, well, how the hell did that happen? It doesn't matter what game you're watching. It happens. Football, baseball, basketball, hockey. We'll stick with the four major food groups of sports here in this country. But we see it on a somewhat regular basis. And to me, it's almost as if Rule 17, that's where we started with this, it could be invoked. But I'm wondering, and this is just my own curiosity for entertainment purposes only, I'm wondering if some of the league executives, or possibly the top of the league, has a say in the outcomes of the game in the first place. Okay, so maybe that is an unpopular opinion, because America and the world doesn't want to see a fixed game. But remember, what does the corporate charter say for the National Football League? Let's do this. Let's take a look at this. I'm going to pull my phone up while I'm talking to you right now on air, and I'm going to go NFL Charter and mission statement. NFL Charter mission statement. Okay, now this goes back, 100 years, right? And so it says right here, this is according to that your favorite search engine that rhymes with noodle. They say the NFL doesn't have one single charter mission, but focuses on uniting people through football, delivering excitement, ensuring game integrity, that's laughable, prioritizing player health, and building character, with the core purpose of being to foster the business of pro football, the business of, while promoting values, community, and global growth as seen through operations, NFL Foundation, and player development. So let's go back to original NFL charter, because the one thing that I don't see is the mission statement, the original one. Now that is the massaged one. So when you look at the original mission statement, let's see if they actually have one here. Well, the original vision doesn't necessarily reflect what we're after here. So what I'm going to do is on break is I'm going to find the actual quote for the National Football League, founded 100 plus years ago. And you'll see, folks, it is an entertainment company. That's right, it's an entertainment company. It doesn't say it's a sports company. They say it's an entertainment organization. I'm just paraphrasing, of course, because I don't have it in front of me. But what I do know is that when I wonder about the integrity of the game, what I do know is what I see. And you all see the same thing. And so if Rule 17 is legit, when it grants the commissioner ultimate authority to intervene in games affected by extraordinarily unfair acts or calamities, allowing for game reversals, replays, resumption at a specific point, though it's rarely invoked and often discussed regarding major non-calls. All right, if that is the case, how come we haven't seen it when we have seen scores and scores of those items showing their face? All right, back here in a few minutes on The Circus. I'm going to look that up. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come here on The Circus.
Attention business owners, you and your customers are listening to this right now. Face it, every business needs customers, even yours. The Sports Circus is a primetime nationally syndicated program that's carried on ABC, NBC, CNBC, and Westwood One News affiliates, plus CBS, Fox, and NBC sports affiliates across North America, with coverage from Hawaii to New York. Also, the Sports Circus is available to the 180 million subscribers on iHeartRadio, and the Sports Circus gets about 4 million website visitors per month, which could click through your website and bring sales. The Sports Circus provides great content featuring celebrity guests from sports and entertainment to our audience every weekday, which your company could greatly benefit from by increasing your visibility, foot traffic, eyeballs to your website, and calls from potential customers. Call us right now at
714-948-0100. Again, 714-948-0100.
Or email us at info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. Drive your sales today by advertising with the Sports Circus.
Do you know someone with a drug or alcohol problem? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything. Stop the drug and alcohol nightmare. Are drug and alcohol problems hitting you too close to home? Get help right now. Insurance may cover everything.
800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. 800-831-1560. That's 800-831-1560.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes, are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door. store without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at uppercutchops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at uppercutchops.com.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm Roy Firestone. Now it's time to throw it back to Sal.
Thank you, Roy, and welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMTV studio, AAMP Television. This segment brought to you in part by our friends over at the College of Southern Nevada Athletics. Check them out at csncoyotes.com for upcoming games and events. That's the College of Southern Nevada Athletics, csncoyotes.com. Check them out, folks. All right, welcome back to everybody listening in on all of our radio affiliates. Big hello to our friends waking up with us over in Atlanta, WDJY 99.1 FM, 8 a.m. Monday through Friday, right down the road at 7 p.m. Monday through Friday, WAUD out of Auburn, Alabama, from Montgomery all the way over to Columbus, Georgia. That's home of the Atlanta Braves. Everybody up and down the Midwest, out to the West Coast, those driving between sunny Southern California and right here in Las Vegas, listening in on Highway Country Radio 101.5 FM and 107.3 FM along Interstate 15. Thanks for joining us there. Of course, up to Anchorage, all the way down to CBS Sports 1500 KHKA over in Honolulu. CBS Sports is home of the 49ers and the New York Yankees and the Alabama Crimson Tide. Over there in the Hawaiian Islands, of course, everybody else watching Cox, Comcast, Spectrum, Frontier, Oceanic, Time Warner, Spectrum, Wild Charter, and independent cable affiliates from coast to coast. Let's see if I can spit that out, folks. From coast to coast, and that's in select markets, of course. Same thing with Hotel TV and on Pick Your Favorite Streamer. And by the way, in case you're just tuning in, our friends over at Vacation Buddies are giving away a couple of nights in Las Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or Branson, Missouri. If you can answer a simple trivia question, I'm going to repeat the question in case you're just tuning in. Which of these three is the tallest structure in Las Vegas? Is it A, the Stratosphere Tower at the Strat, B, the Fontainebleau Hotel and Casino, or C, the Eiffel Tower at the Paris Hotel and Casino? If you know the answer, call 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777, 888-576-5777. Vacation Buddies is not affiliated with this station, but they want to give you a couple of nights right here in Vegas, Orlando, Florida, or in Branson, Missouri, if you know the answer to that easy trivia question. If so, call 888-576-5777. Call now. That's right. Applause for that. All right. So I was looking for something that would indicate, well, that we are a questionable league, but originally the NFL, as I understood it, was founded as an entertainment company by the powers that be. And look, folks, I go back to Rule 17, NFL Rule 17, and of course it grants the commissioner, in case you're just tuning in, the ultimate authority to intervene in games affected by extraordinarily unfair acts or calamities, allowing for game reversals, replays, or resumption from a specific point, Okay, and so when you think of unfair, and you think of acts of unfair, and you have to determine what is extraordinarily unfair, because that's in quotes, extraordinarily unfair. What does that mean? How do you define that? That's sort of a nebulous term. Now, an act of calamity, we can understand that. But when we think of an extraordinarily unfair act, could you say that officiating is part of that extraordinarily unfair definition? Now, we don't really know. So people say, well, these games are fixed, this, that, and the other, and I happen to believe a lot of the games are compromised myself. So if you look up the idea and pick your favorite source, they'll say, well, the games, they were fair. And the idea of, I guess, a fixed game is something that is somebody's opinion until the evidence actually comes out. Like we've seen it in the NBA, for example. We have had Tim Donaghy on the show, and Tim had admitted and went to prison for fixing basketball games. So when we think of Rule 17 and why the commissioner has not invoked the, quote, extraordinarily unfair, close quote, circumstances for a game, well, what about egregious calls or a lack thereof? So you could say, well, those games, a lot of these games are predetermined. And yeah, there's a lot of persistent rumor, conspiracy about it, so they say. And of course, the most important part is, well, there's no concrete evidence and public proof of widespread organized match fixing. Okay, the key is widespread match fixing. That's what I want to focus on for a minute. Because even if it's isolated, well, it doesn't necessarily mean it's widespread. Therefore, is it an extraordinarily unfair circumstance? Well, one bad apple can't spoil the whole bunch. Now, can it? I don't know about that. I mean, to me, it absolutely can. And so as I look at it, I scratch my head and say, well, wait a minute. What is fair? What's unfair? And, well, you say, well, there's no concrete public proof of widespread organized match fixing, though controversies like Deflategate, right, underinflated footballs, for an edge, they show teams seeking unfair advantages. Well, somebody once told me, and then I heard it again and again, and probably a million times since, well, if you're not cheating, you're not trying. Well, first of all, cheaters never win and winners never cheat. So you don't have to do that. So this is the cliche portion of the show, I suppose. But nonetheless, when you think about sports betting, well, sports betting creates what? Incentives for potential manipulation. Of course it does. Because although we had a champion on this show state very clearly that every game in the National Football League is fixed. And that's a Super Bowl champion, by the way, who went to go work for the powers that be once he got done playing for the National Football League. All right, so be it. He said it in prime time right here on this show that those games he knew for a fact they were fixed. So think about that one. Put that in your pipe and smoke it. But nonetheless, you think of the actual game fixing, it remains unsubstantiated. And that's what popular opinion is. But we have seen game in and game out unfair, extraordinarily unfair circumstances. And it doesn't matter whether it's a game for playoff determination or just one of the old games that the nobody cares game. There are extraordinarily unfair circumstances in the officiating in many of the games that we watch today. And I would love to know why the commissioner has never stepped in and said, wait a minute, that was so bad, we have to step in. Now, you never really see this, but boy, I would sure love to see it because that would really bring everybody into the same room. And now the integrity that goes with the league, or the lack thereof, as many people see it. Now, there is some policing going on. There's some accountability going on. And that's what we don't see. We don't see the commissioner, who's paid a lot of money, and I mean a lot. So when you say, what is the commissioner really paid? Well, in case you're in some crazy corner of the world when you don't know, Roger Goodell makes $63.9 million annually. That's right. 6390000. No. So you're talking 63.9, and let's go divided by 52 weeks. This guy makes $1.25 million every week. And I think he gets paid that kind of money for literally staying out of the way. That's my opinion. So we go back to Rule 17. Why is it significant? Because, look, there are key aspects that are not being taken into account. And, of course, those include the commissioner's authority. And he has the sole power to investigate and act on situations deemed extraordinarily unfair or major disruptions. Okay, so who is the one doing the deeming? Is it him or is it a committee? That's what we don't know about Rule 17. And of course, the commissioner can order a forfeiture of a game, the rescheduling of a game from the beginning or a specific point, and monetary fines or draft choice forfeitures, right? So then you have the palpably unfair act. How do you like this one? And this is the common term for the term of egregious. Unfairness, covered by Rule 17, often involving referee error or external interference. Of course, then you have the historical context of Rule 17. It's never been officially invoked to change a game's result, despite the controversy of that 2018 NFC Championship no call that I mentioned, which of course spurred lawsuits and discussions about it. The point is, we go back to that palpably unfair act, that egregious unfairness, talking about referee error or interference. This is something that we seem to see on a regular basis, but nobody seems to want to call the commissioner or to call the powers that be that say, hey, this has been deemed, quote, extraordinarily unfair, close quote, because that is a key aspect of Rule 17. Who is the one that calls for it to be extraordinarily unfair? Is there a committee for it? Is there a right hand for the commissioner? Or does the commissioner do it? Is it the NFLPA? Who does it? So there's so much blue sky in this. It's kind of like when you buy a title policy for a house. Everybody that's a homeowner here listening to the show, well, guess what? If you bought a title policy, let's say you bought the house on a mortgage, right? And you have to have a title policy to clear the title and so forth. But what I'm after here is if you read the policy, guess what, folks? There is so much blue sky in that policy, meaning all the title policy exceptions. That is, in my opinion, the biggest ripoff in the business world today, which are blue sky title policies. Well, guess what, folks? We're going to be back here on the Sports Circus with more football. Don't go anywhere.
If I was your mother and you had a drug problem, I'd grab you by the ear and make you call and get help. You can be in treatment tomorrow and start to get clean in 7 days. Follow Mom's advice and call the Detox and Treatment Helpline now. Write this number down.
800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. 800-814-8628. That's 800-814-8628.
Are you or someone you love struggling with an addiction to drugs or alcohol and want to be set free from the chains of addiction? Then call Addiction Helpline America right now to get the help you need. From drug and alcohol addiction to dual diagnosis treatment, we provide a confidential helpline to help people like you get sober and live happy, substance-free lives.
Treatment helped me get my life back. I was so addicted, the only person I could focus on was myself and what I needed. I hit rock bottom and lost everything. Through treatment, I was able to overcome those demons and focus on my family again.
I used until I overdosed and almost died. That was the end of the road for me. After seeking treatment, I now have hope. I learned skills that help me deal with life on life's terms.
800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. 800-426-4994. That's 800-426-4994.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Investors, keep listening to learn how to get your free gold report. A currency crisis is upon us. The U.S. dollar has been the world's reserve currency for over 50 years, but that is changing. It's time to protect your retirement. Decades of reckless borrowing and spending have critically weakened the dollar. The U.S. has become the world's biggest debtor with over $35 trillion in debt. Plus, the dollar's become weaponized. Countries are dumping it. Investors Others who wait until it's too late could lose big. There is one safe haven, gold. Diversify your portfolio with a physical asset they can't take away. Call the Reagan Gold Group right now and ask for your free gold guide. Here's our number.
800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. 800-876-7041. That's 800-876-7041.
Hey everyone, Dave Jackson here, ESPN rules analyst on ESPN Hockey, and you're listening to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out thesportscircus.com for our upcoming guest, our prior guest, our recorded shows, which can be found on Apple, Amazon, Audible, Spotify, Pandora, YouTube, iHeart, Stitcher, Deezer, plus a whole bunch of others. Also, check out the partners page. Lots of great partners at thesportscircus.com. And one of those is the music of legendary rock band Blue Oyster Cult. There's a hot link right there on the page, which is the partners page. I was going to say sponsor page. Actually, it's the partners page. Click on it for Blue Oyster Cult. You'll see their logo. You'll see their name. It'll take you right to their touring schedule, right to their merch page. Got to tell you, folks, these guys sound like they're right out of the box from way back decades ago. They put on an incredible show. I've seen them many times live, and they sound great. They don't fix it in the mix. They don't use backing tracks. They don't use auto-tune. No, they are legit. Boy, they are good. Check them out. Blue Oyster Cult at thesportscircus.com's partners page, or just go to blueoystercult.com and tell them the circus sent you. All right, welcome back to everybody on TV and radio. You know you are. So we left off in the last segment. We were talking about Rule 17 and who in the world is on that committee, or who's the one that deems Rule 17 in situations in games as deeming for the commissioner for the use as extraordinarily unfair. Now, the one thing we don't know is who does that. So I guess what I'm trying to say here is it's just very nebulous, and it just seems like Goodell is paid $63.9 million a year to just stay out of the way. In my opinion, I can say that's my opinion. But in essence, Rule 17 is supposed to act as the NFL's nuclear option for truly catastrophic and unfair game-altering events, which, frankly, I haven't seen that. I don't know if you have. And it's supposed to ensure fairness when normal officiating fails. But its applications remain largely theoretical. But what is normal officiating? I have no damn clue what normal officiating is. I know what it's supposed to look like. Hell, I read the Football Encyclopedia. It's the first book I ever read cover to cover. I was in second grade. I did it 2 times. I don't really like reading too much, but I did it for 10 years, piling up degrees in college and all that other stuff. But I have to tell you, this is good reading. And in the grand scheme of things, when you look at what has happened in the National Football League, and frankly, some of the other leagues as well, you just scratch your head and say, well, why is it that people technically are, I guess, paid to stay out of the way? If that is the case, of course, that's my assumption, and I could do that. But it sure seems to make a little bit of sense to me personally. So then let's move on. Let's talk about the 45 rule, the 45-point rule. Now, this doesn't deal directly with what we know of football, but it is an 8-man football. In case you don't know, this is kind of a fun thing. When one team is 45 or more points ahead at the end of the first half, or if it secures such a lead during the second half, the game is ended immediately. So this is pre-NFL. However, it's an interesting rule that nobody really knows too terribly much about. And the rule's not in effect during the state championship games. Anyway, but let's go back to this palpably unfair act. I want to talk about that because allegedly, the rarest penalty is arguably that palpably unfair act, a referee discretion rule allowing them to award a touchdown for egregious game-altering fouls, like someone running from the bench to tackle a player or something like that, whatever, something unfair that aren't easily covered by standard penalties. And of course, though it's incredibly rare in the NFL, with the fair catch rule also being an exceptionally rare play penalty combo. That's right, penalty combo. We see fair catches all the time. Well, other contend for rarity include the obscure illegal wedge, or rarely called, and unique situations like the invalid fair catch. How do you like that? But let's go back to this palpably unfair act. So what is it? Rule 12, Section 2, Article 2 of the NFL Rulebook allows referees to award a score if a player commits an act that is palpably unfair, wish they would use a different word, preventing a likely touchdown, for example. So why is it rare? Because, well, it takes an extreme measure for extreme behavior. That goes back to I guess we saw that with Woody Hayes back with Ohio State. But nonetheless, it's often involving a player interfering from a sideline or a coach obstructing a runner, which we've seen that before from Ohio State. Anyway, it's so rare that it's almost legendary, honestly, but officials have threatened it in very close calls. And honestly, this is something that's sitting out there. And so you ask yourself, will it ever be called again? Who the hell knows? Moving on. How about the fair catch kick? So a very rare attempt by the receiving team to catch a field goal from a spot of a fair catch requiring specific rare game situations. What the hell does that mean? Well, guess what? Let's move on to the illegal wedge. Never mind that one. A specific penalty on kickoffs for 3 or more players forming a tight shoulder-to-shoulder block within 2 yards. Now, we used to see that in football all the time. We always saw that wedge. Well, guess what? And suddenly it became unfair, which I don't really like that idea. I don't like the fact that it is deemed unfair. I just don't like that because we've seen that some of the greatest kickoff returns in the history of football have been that wedge. And I like the wedge, personally. I think it's good. And there's a great surf spot over in Southern California, over at the end of the Balboa Peninsula in Newport Beach, called the Wedge. Some of the greatest surf in Southern California is there. Anyway, how about the invalid fair catch? That's an interesting one. So when a returner signals for a fair catch after the ball has hit the ground, resulting in a 5-yard penalty and a first down for the kicking team. Now, you don't see that very often. That is basically the alligator arms, scared, I don't want to get hit type of a play, in my opinion. I mean, look, those penalties are rare because they involve unique circumstances and are so severe sometimes that they're almost never seen in professional football. So it's kind of like the idea of the proverbial mercy rule. Yeah, the NFL does not have an official mercy rule to end games early, but unlike youth or high school football, which often uses that 35-point lead rule, however, in lopsided NFL games, winning teams often unofficially follow a mercy by benching its stars and running simple plays, running the ball more, and trying to end the game quickly to prevent injuries and show sportsmanship. Well, I guess it depends on the team. But the game clock always runs its full course unless stopped for timeouts or other official reasons. And you know what I've seen about this is you'll see players that will go sit. Now, we've seen that in football, baseball, basketball, hockey, whatever. Hockey, actually, they're very good about the whole mercy rule thing. But what I love about hockey is if one team is killing the other team and then the team that's getting killed, they make a boneheaded play and they do something really bad to the other team. Well, guess what? When there's a penalty on that team that's getting killed, the other team will absolutely try to bury them. And if they get a major penalty, which is essentially unlimited power play time for maybe a period of 5 minutes, that's when things get really ugly because they say, okay, you're going to play like that? Now we're going to score at will against you because you deserve it. And honestly, I think the NFL should have something like that too. We don't really see much of that because the one thing that we do see in the NFL is a lot of convenient play calling that would coincide with, point spreads. That's right. Because ultimately it comes down to,
show me the money!
And I'll show you a point spread cover. And that's why people ask so much or so frequently about Rule 17, about, well, hey, wait a minute, this is horribly unfair. They say extraordinarily unfair. Well, that's one of the things. When you see calls that go that particular way, those are extraordinarily unfair. And how come those aren't called? See, the NFL isn't necessarily self-policing because what they're not doing is they're not punishing people for making plays that very clearly, or coaches that are calling plays that just make you scratch your head like, wait a minute, why are they running this play when they know they can't do blah, blah, blah? And I've talked to pro football players about, I had this conversation a few days ago with somebody that played in the league for a dozen years. And they even asked me, they said, why do you suppose that a coach would call this, would call that, would call this? Well, look, because the money dictates what's going to happen in these games, folks. And that goes back to, again, Rule 17. So you may wonder why I'm beating this to death. Well, it's because there's a lot of latitude in Rule 17. I don't give a damn about this rule, that rule, the other. Actually, I care about some of them. But when you ask yourself about why there's no official rule for a mercy rule in the NFL, well, it's professionalism and competition, right? The NFL values full competition for all 60 minutes. So they say, and blowouts are seen as part of the professional game. And they say, well, it's for entertainment value. Well, ending games early reduces entertainment value for fans. But what does it also do? It changes the line and the payoff. All right, back here in a few minutes, we're going to wrap it up. In the last segment, I'm going to continue on with some NFL rules that make you scratch your head. Don't go anywhere. Lots more to come.
That's the sound of sizzling, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks from UpperCutChops.com. Their best-in-class filet mignons, New York steaks, and the king of all steaks, the tomahawk and cowboy cut ribeyes are the best in the business. Even their Prime Wagyu burgers will likely be the best you've ever had. Browse the full selection of steaks and chops at UpperCutChops.com from the comfort of your home or on your mobile device. UpperCutChops.com delivers all-natural, dry-aged USDA Prime Wagyu and Angus steaks and chops directly to your door, without the hassle of going to the grocery store and fight crowds to pick from a small selection of average at best meats with injected steroids, fillers, and coloring added to look good. Find out what's for dinner at UpperCutChops.com or call 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. 714-948-0100. Or make your selection directly at UpperCutChops.com.
Do you own a timeshare? Well, face the facts. You made a mistake. You made a bad purchase. A timeshare is not an investment. It's a money pit that continues forever. If you use your timeshare, that's great. But if you don't, and you want to legally get out of your contract, call my friends right now at the Timeshare Exit Hotline. They're an experienced team of lawyers who help good people like you get out of a timeshare contract that they just don't want. Don't throw away your money on maintenance fees. Use it for things you really want. We can help you end your timeshare contract and stop the money drain immediately. If you're ready to move on with your timeshare, call our team right now.
Cancel your timeshare now with a free call. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. 800-298-3173. That's 800-298-3173.
Owning great property is almost impossible these days. At least, that's what people keep saying. They don't know about National Premier Properties. Do you have $350 or a credit card? You can own a great piece of property in a resort community. National Premier Properties has over 51 years of experience helping people just like you purchase amazing properties across the U.S. and in Mexico, Canada, the Bahamas. It takes less than 5 minutes to turn your dream into reality. Visit nationalpremierproperties.com and make it happen now.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.
Hey everybody, this is Brian Urlacher. Welcome back to the Sports Circus.
Welcome back to the Sports Circus. I'm your ringmaster, Sal, live from Las Vegas in the AMP TV studio, AAMP television. Folks, make sure you check out the store at thesportscircus.com. Lots of great items over there. Hats, hoodies, t-shirts, and sweatpants, and sweat coats, and jackets, and pillows, and blankets, and coffee mugs, travel mugs, all kinds of cool things. Mouse pads as well. All kinds of cool items with the Sports Circus logo on them. Again, that is the store at thesportscircus.com. Check it out, folks. A shameless plug for the Sports Circus. All right, a big welcome back to everybody listening in on radio, TV, streaming, and on Chicago Food Favorites. Check out Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook, folks. A fun group. Talk about your favorite foods, your favorite restaurants, your favorite recipes. Make some friends, have some fun. Chicago Food Favorites on Facebook. All right. Lots of NFL rule talk today because, look, people talk about it, but they don't know where to go with it. Or they heard something or saw something, but they don't know what the basis of a rule is or anything like that from time to time. So my job today is to give you a little bit of detail of some of the origin of these rules and or the interpretation of them or the enforcement thereof or lack thereof, I should say. And Rule 17 is a real big one, folks. If you have anything to take away from this program today, it is Rule 17. Look into it because it is absolutely applicable, in my opinion, in many of the games in the National Football League. And I don't care what time of year you're watching. Pick your favorite month. Pick your favorite team, your least favorite team. None of it really matters. But you know what really matters? I'll tell you what matters is fairness. And when we don't have fairness, and a lot of people are betting on these games, and basically it's like flipping a coin. You're betting on a coin flip at this point with a lot of the, I guess, the alleged, I don't know, all those sports betting apps and crap like that, or even if you go to the sports book and whatnot. I mean, look, folks, ultimately, you say this is for entertainment purposes only. Well, that's kind of what the betting idea is. And you can't, or most people can't make a living off of it. Some people do somehow, but you got to be able to bankroll it. It takes a lot of money to be able to bankroll a habit when it comes to sports betting. And if you have a method, you still have to know how to go about hedging and odds. It's kind of like playing dice. I could tell you there are numerous ways to hedge against the odds or the probability on a dice table. However, if you can't bankroll it, then it's almost impossible to do it. It's like showing up to the poker table short stacked. You can't do it. So betting on sports is much the same way, because there are certain things you could do to hedge against when it comes to betting. And I was just telling one of my buddies about this, and he says he likes to bet on football or baseball, whatever. So let's just use football as an example. So he likes to bet parlays, 2-team parlays, 3-team parlays. And I said, well, you know, Jim, why don't you consider the idea of maybe a 3-team round robin? A 3-team round robin will give you the possibility of, if you get 2 out of 3 right, you're still making money. And how it works, of course, I'm just completely sidetracking here, but I want you to realize that I do know a little bit about the sports betting world, which that's why I'm known as Sal the Bookmaker. However, my point is, a 3-team round robin is different than a 3-team parlay. A 3-team parlay, all 3 teams have to come in. It'll typically pay 5.5, 6 to 1, depending on the location or the venue. However, if one team loses, you lose the bet. That's it. Real simple. So a 2-team parlay is just that. Both teams have to win for you to get your money. And if one team ties and the other one wins, chances are you basically just get your flat money bet back. So if you bet $100, you probably get your $100 back. That's it. Now, the way a 3-team round robin works, there are 2 ways to do it, by 2s and by 3s. So let's just do the first one by 2s. Technically, you have 3 teams, A, B, and C. And so really what you have are 3 separate parlays. A to B, A to C, and then B to C. That's how that works. So if you win one of those, let's say there's a $100 bet on a parlay. So it pays 13 to 5 or 16 or $160, right? And that's kind of how it works. So 13 to 5 times 2 is 16 to 10, right? And the reality is, if you hit one of those, you get your $100 back plus $260, right? So now you have a total of $60 that you made because you maybe lost the other 2 parlays, but you win one parlay. So if you lose one, let's say if you lose A to B and then A to C. However, B to C is still alive, and let's say that's the one you hit. You get paid $160 plus your original bet of $100 or $260 total, and you put out a grand total of for the parlays in the first place. You had to cover those. So technically, you end up making about $60 in the grand scheme of things. So you're actually better off with a 3-team round robin. Yes, you're basically betting 3 2-team parlays, but this way, even if 2 out of 3 come in, you still end up to the plus side. So why does all this stuff matter? Because the sports betting money is real money that's out there every day. People are using apps. They're using their hard-earned money and they're trying to parlay it because life is getting so expensive. So you say, well, why does all this rule stuff matter? Well, it matters because the bettors, in my opinion, are getting ripped off. So let's go back to rule number 1 in football. It's the field of play, the field surface. The field of play must be wholly natural, or if competition rules permit, a wholly artificial playing surface, except where competition rules permit an integrated combination of artificial and natural materials, a hybrid system. So let's think about back when the Oakland A's were playing baseball at the Oakland Alameda Coliseum. And, well, you also had the Oakland Raiders playing football on that field. So it was part dirt, part grass. But remember, it was either all natural or all artificial. And that was all natural. So law number 1, the field of play, the field surface comes into play there. So you can't have, for example, a dirt infield and an artificial turf outfield. You don't see teams playing on that kind of setup. I mean, there's a lot of reasons for it. You think of injuries first and foremost. You got a slippery field in one area versus one where there's no give for the knee whatsoever on the artificial surfaces. Now, the artificial surface is a real problem because when a player, let's just say in baseball, well, let's go to football since we're sticking with football. So we go to football and we say, well, all right, you have these players playing on an artificial surface, and maybe they're trying to do a dig route. Your wide receivers are doing a dig route, right? So there's a cut. Well, the reality is the knee is only going to bend a certain way. When the foot gets into the turf, there's no give in the turf. And so the turf will cause the knee and the ligaments to be strained. That's why we have a lot of MCLs, ACLs, this kind of thing. A lot of knee injuries, a lot more knee injuries with the use of artificial surfaces than we had with non-artificial surfaces like grass and dirt, because there's give in the field of play. And so law number 1, the field of play rule, actually has some significant value. And if you're going to play on an artificial surface or a composite surface or a hybrid system, well, then you need shoes that are appropriate for it as well. That's a big deal. If you don't have the right shoes on, like in baseball, as a former baseball player, we had what? We had baseball spikes. And so they dug into the surface. That's right. They dug into the grass and into the dirt, right? Why? Well, I'll tell you why. Real simple. Because the field of play could either get slippery or fast, so like dirt. You have a fast track if it's really dry. That's what they say in the racetrack business, right? And if you have a mud track, it's a mud track. If you have a slow track, that means it's kind of soggy and slow, and it's not fully dry, but it's still clumpy, if you know what I mean. So the footing is a little bit different. So that's why rule number 1, or the field of play, law number 1, is really important. I mean, let's think about this. How about the Dempsey rule in football? Now, there was some controversy about the legality of Dempsey's custom shoe. That's right, custom shoe. And in 1977, the NFL added the Tom Dempsey rule, stating, quote, any shoe that is worn by a player with an artificial limb in his kicking leg must have a kicking surface that conforms to that of a normal kicking shoe. And so if you look it up, you'll see this really oblong shoe. It's like, wait a minute, this doesn't look like a natural kicking surface. Well, the NFL tried to normalize that, which they did. And yeah, I mean, look, Tom Dempsey's kicking shoe it could be found in Bullock, Texas at the State History Museum. So it is there. All right. But there are different rules out there that the NFL sees. And you ask about the harshest penalties. And one of them, they say, well, the NFL handed down one of the harshest punishments when Sean Payton was suspended for a year without pay for his involvement in the team's bounty program. So was that legit, or was that something to get Sean Payton out of the game for a year or to make him look bad? I don't know. I wasn't a part of that one. But there are people that ask the question. And now look, there are also the dumb fines, right? Players for supporting particular causes. For example, the eye black, the breast cancer from D'Angelo Williams. I don't even understand why there was any kind of fine there. Or minor uniform infractions like Josh Norman's patriotic cleats. What kind of crap is that? You should let him. Why not? How about Eric Weddle's staying for his daughter's dance? Or even not doing something like Chad Johnson fined for asking not to be fined. I mean, that's ridiculous. These kind of things happen in the league. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, Roger Goodell makes his $63.9 million a year for, in my opinion, for just simply staying out of the way. I don't think that's right whatsoever. Roger Goodell, I would love to see a fine imposed on him for not imposing rules in the first place. Now that deserves the super applause. Do you think that Roger Goodell should be fined for a lack of enforcement? And if you think so, email me info@thesportscircus.com. That's info@thesportscircus.com. And listen, you won't be the only person emailing, because I'll be emailing myself on this one, because I think that Roger Goodell should be held accountable for some of the BS that we see in the National Football League today and in past years and for future years. That's my opinion. I'm entitled to say it just like you're entitled to say it and think about it and tell people about it as well. As long as you make it in editorial form, it's your opinion and you're entitled to it, which is guaranteed by the First Amendment, your freedom of speech. That's going to do it for the circus today. I'm your Ringmaster Sal. We'll see you in about 23 hours right here on your favorite station. Until then, so long, everyone.
Owning great property is almost impossible these days. At least, that's what people keep saying. They don't know about National Premier Properties. Do you have $350 or a credit card? You can own a great piece of property in a resort community. National Premier Properties has over 51 years of experience helping people just like you purchase amazing properties across the U.S. and in Mexico, Canada, the Bahamas. It takes less than 5 minutes to turn your dream into reality. Visit nationalpremierproperties.com and make it happen now.
Why pay retail for your next car? Just visit beepinautos.com to find your new-to-you car or truck. They find cars for people, even when cars are hard to find. So just go to beepinautos.com and click on Find Me a Car, and they find your perfect car on the wholesale market. Beepinautos.com. They're a car concierge. Beepinautos.com. BEEPIN autos.com. Beepinautos.com. Now you have a friend in the car business when you need it most. Trusted since 2013. Just click Find Me a Car at beepinautos.com.